They unveiled a bunch of new phones with new brand product names. I'm not even going to say the names on the air, but there's a phone that's bigger. There's a phone that's even bigger than the bigger one. And then I think there's a giant one. Who cares? That's my response. Who cares? Or should we be so excited by a new line of products being advertised by a company that we spend time in our tech news talking about the brand names and why the bigger one is slightly faster than the other one and one has rounded edges? I have no idea. I didn't watch the event. I did not delve deeply into the tech news that is basically free advertising for Apple, masquerading as journalism. I didn't get into that very, very far. And in fact, I am seriously considering pulling a Corey Pine. You remember him, the author of Live, Work, 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 Die from a few months ago. He said very, very specifically in my interview with him that he no longer uses a smartphone. He went onto eBay and got a flip phone from a few years ago that does phone calls and a little bit of texting, and that's about it. And I'm seriously considering doing that, friends, because I'm kind of tired of being surveilled in every possible way from these companies. And even Apple does it to some extent, although we are focusing more on Google tonight. And it's true, Google does it more than Apple, but I am not going to turn this into an Apple advertisement. If you're interested in those things, you can find the ads in most of the tech media. I'm not going to cover. That's not what this show does. If you want my recommendation for the new latest and greatest smartphone, I tell you, go get a flip phone from 2007, as far as I'm concerned. Next week, I want to give a plug for next week. There is a new documentary that just came out called, speaking of Google, called The Creepy Line. If you haven't heard about this, go onto your favorite search engine, duckduckgo.com or perhaps startpage.com, and look up The Creepy Line. And it talks about what Google is doing, especially within the realm of elections and our democracy here in the United States. And it's well worth watching. I have watched it. I went to an advanced screening and I interviewed the director, and a previous guest was there who's featured in the film. Dr. Robert Epstein was there as well. So you will hear from the director of The Creepy Line next week. We will be talking about Google. If you can find it online or perhaps being shown in your city, go out and see it. That is your assignment for next week. And we will be talking about what Google does to enforce its own agenda, in some ways its own political agenda, but its own agenda for the world without us knowing. So I'm very much looking forward to that interview. And I want to thank everybody for commenting this evening. I'm sorry I wasn't able to get to more comments, but I will, as always, read all the comments. And perhaps if there's one that needs response, I'll get to it next week. This is show number 51. And once again, it's such a great pleasure to continue on into the second year of Tectonic on WFMU, which of course is the greatest radio station in the world, WFMU East Orange, WMFU Mount Hope, in New York City and Rockland County at 91.9 FM, and online, even in Washington State, where Rich in Washington is, at WFMU.org, even in China, for now, at WFMU.org. I want you to stay tuned for Dan Boda, the great Dan Boda, who's going to be hosting Vocal Fry, and I'm sure, as always, it's going to be a fun show, well worth your listen. And thanks, everyone, for tuning in. Have a good week, and I'll see you next Monday.